I guess I wanted to ask though that your husband, was he in your life at the time that this incident happened? And if he was, or even if he wasn't, wait, first of all, was he?
Yes, he was.
He
There's
was
a story
awesome.
to that. So once you're done with the question, I will give
Tell
you
us the story. I'm done with the question. Tell us. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Victoria Ayodele Fash. If it's your first time here, thank you so much for joining me. If you're a returning subscriber, I love you, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for always coming back. Okay guys, welcome to another interesting, exciting episode of Unashamed with Victoria Fash. You guys have been amazing throughout this journey. Thank you so much for as many who have been liking, leaving comments, encouraging, as many who have reached out to tell their story. I am so grateful for the past people who have come to the channel. Thank you guys so much. I am so grateful to you guys. Okay, so today I have a very special guest on the channel today. Yes, I think I got to know Maureen when Facebook writing was still a thing. I remember when I was still in school, I used to write a lot on Facebook. I think that was how I actually got like my first recognition, because if most of you know me, you know that I started a page on Facebook called Let's Talk Women. Yes, that was where I actually started before I came on YouTube. And before Let's Talk Women, I used to write a lot of short stories, and I remember Maureen also used to write a lot then on Facebook too. And I started following her during that time. And I think then, of course, everybody left Facebook for our mothers. And eventually when I met my husband, I think my husband knew her. I think he knew you from Facebook. And then and then I remember there was a time he wanted to, because Maureen is also a fashion issue. Maureen is a lot of things. She's a lot of things. I'm going to leave her Instagram page below so that you guys can check her out on her channel. On her Instagram page. So I think my husband reached out to her to sew. That time that he was still chasing me up and down, right? He reached out to her to sew like a dress for me. I still have that dress. I love the dress, only that it doesn't fit me anymore. but anyway, so Maureen Aliko is actually she's a rape survivor. She is the convener of Demystifying Abuse campaign. She's also the director of Maureen Oluwatobi Foundation. I have followed her, for someone that I've followed for so long. I also got to know her when she went through which she was going to share, her experience and all of that. And I've seen so much growth and so much beauty that has come out, and so much purpose, I would say, that has come out of that of that experience that she had, right? So I don't want to talk too much. I've talked too much already, so let us allow Maureen. So Maureen, can you please just tell us a little bit about yourself, just a little bit introduction?
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Of course, I am one of the members of the Victoria Fash community on YouTube. So thank you so much. Of course, I learned a lot from her account. I learned a lot from her page, and of course, the amazing people she has brought on to have different conversations. And I love how dedicated she is to people's lives, and she dares to have conversations that a lot of persons are too scared to have online. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So my name is Maureen Oluwatobi. I don't even know where to start the introduction from, like she said. But fundamentally, I'm a creative person. So like she mentioned, I also run an NGO. It's called the Maureen Oluwatobi Foundation. And I have a particular signature event or a signature campaign or initiative that is run under the Maureen Oluwatobi Foundation. And that's Demystify Abuse campaign. And we're going to get to the root of how that started sometime in the conversation, but that's the long and short. I am married to one husband, and he's from Yoruba. The same way my sister Victoria is from. I had to transport myself from River State to come to this land, so I will enjoy the beauty of the Yoruba people.
You are welcome. You are
Thank
welcome.
you.
We treat our people, we treat our wives well here.
Look at me now. I'm dripping Yoruba glory. Thank you. Then alongside my husband, we are resident pastors of the Tribe Nation in Lagos, and we're just cruising and enjoying our life. Over to you.
You see what I'm saying? She's a lot of things. She's pastor's wife, she's pastor, she's author, she's everything. And I love that. I love that because, you know, I love when I see people using their talents and their gifts, you know, to honor God, to give glory to God, and not just that, but also to help people, which is, you know, awesome. All right, so let us get into this interview, you know, specifically, right? So I want you, like I said before we started, like I always love it when, you know, you tell me your story, your journey, and, you know, in as much as I've, you know, followed you on Facebook, known you for a while until, you know, you had that big shift in your life that, you know, opened up this door, this, you know, new purpose, I believe, for you. But, you know, I'm sure that, you know, there's a lot of story there, right? So I know a lot of people on this channel have asked me over and again, you know, people who have been through, you know, rape or sexual assault as, you know, a trauma, looking for what are the things you should look out for, what are the effects it has on you, and all of that. So before we go there, I would like you to, like, tell me about, you know, your story. You know, who was Maureen before, you know, the incident happened? How, if you are open to sharing, like, what was that incident? And then, yeah, just tell us that story.
Okay. Who was Maureen before the incident happened? Well, like almost everyone, I was born into a family, and I have a mom, I have a dad. I grew up having a conventional teenage life, but somewhere along the line, my parents separated early. I'm going to try as much as possible to take the story way back, because it didn't just start when I experienced rape. There's also a backstory before we got to the rape incident. So at some point, my parents separated very early, and we had to go live with our grandparents. So while we were living with our grandparents, I had my uncles, one of my aunts, and different family members in the house. But somewhere in between, growing up as a teenager, I got sexually abused multiple times by an uncle in the family. Initially, when it happened, I did not know what it was about. I did not have a name to it. Thanks to enlightenment, now we can call it sexual abuse, we can say molestation, we can say rape. But initially, when it was happening, I had no idea of what it was about until I got older and I got wiser, and I discovered that, oh, this is what this was. And for the longest of time, of course, that affected me. That changed my perspective to life. It changed the way I saw myself. It also changed the way I saw my uncle, the way I saw the male gender. It changed my perspective about a lot of things, right? Somewhere along the line, I began to navigate my journey of healing from sexual abuse, right? So I began to learn, I began to do different things to help myself heal. So I would stop seeing myself, and I'll stop seeing the world through the lens of the trauma or through the lens of this past experience, because it so blurred my life that I couldn't see the beauty of this life clearly. And for the longest time, I didn't know that was what was affecting me until life and God began to highlight some of these experiences and how it could be traced to that past experience. So my journey began where I began to navigate my sexual abuse recovery journey. But sometime in 2016, you know, you're on a healing journey and you believe that I've gotten this thing right so I can move on with my life. But then sometime in 2016, armed robbers broke into my house. At this point, I was done with university, I was done with school, I lived off campus because, of course, I wanted to start out my life. I didn't want to go back to living with my parents as an adult. So I thought. So I was living off camp, and one day, armed robbers broke into my house, and then the rape happened. They broke in, had guns, pointed guns at me and my roommates, raped us at gunpoint, and then threatened us threatened us never to tell the story to anyone. And they said that if we ever told anyone that we were raped, that they would come back and ensure that we did not leave that vicinity alive. So in my spirit, I was angry because I felt that, first, you raped me at gunpoint. Secondly, you now dare to tell me not to talk about it. So you want me to carry the burden, the shame, the hurt of the experience, and also the burden of silence and secrecy. And I just knew that I was not going to do that. And the reason I knew that secrecy and the experience was going to affect me long term was because I had experienced sexual abuse. So I knew how long it took me to journey in healing. I knew the impact of the silence that I kept for a very long time. I knew that for me not to speak about my experience was ultimately again going to spiral into another journey of looking at the world through the perspective of a rape victim, and I did not want that for myself. And of course also I had journeyed so much in my work with God that God began to teach me how to navigate or how to interpret life experiences using biblical interpretation or using scriptural references. So when the rape happened, it was easier for me to look at it as an attempt to stop me from doing something I wanted to do. Because prior to the rape happening, okay, I think I should tell you guys this story. So this was 2016, sometime 2016, I think June, July, I fell sick and I went to the hospital. Doctors were not finding anything. They couldn't decipher what was wrong with me. So my mom became scared and worried and asked me to come back home so she could look after me. So while I was in my mom's house, the sickness became very serious on a Saturday night, and Sunday morning, I was still alive. I began to thank God, thank you that I didn't die. So that Sunday morning, when every member of my family left and went to church, I stayed home because I was too sick to go out. I stayed home and began to worship God, and I began to have conversation with God about the next phase of my life and about how I was not ready to die, because dying at that point would mean that I had not lived my life to its full potential, and I didn't want to do that. So I had this very sincere conversation with God. So God began to teach me that, okay, if you want to live a life of purpose, you have to know that it begins with serving people. So I began to ask God, how? I've been serving people, but then how do you want me to do it in this next phase of my life? So God began to tell me that I could use my healing journey as a sexual abuse survivor to help other people navigate their healing journey. So that day, I wrote everything down. I told God, okay, that was actually the day the name Demystify Abuse campaign was received, June, July 2016. So I wrote it down. Immediately I wrote down everything God wanted me to do using that experience. I became well. By the time my parents came back from church, I was ready to pack my bag and go back to my house. My mom was like, no, I have to watch you because I don't understand this swift turnaround that you're saying you are experiencing because of your health. But when I wrote all of those things down, I went back home, and between this June, July, August, September, October, November, that was on the 15th of November, I made a post on Facebook. I have evidence. This life is so beautiful. I made a post on Facebook that I needed a graphic designer to help me work on something I needed to do. So I was preparing for the next year, which was 2017, and I wanted to now put action to the vision that God gave me in June that year. So I asked the graphic designer to help me design a logo on the 15th. The same night the graphic designer prepared the logo and sent to me was the same night the robbers came into my house, stole the phone that had the logo, and raped me. So when I talked about God helping me interpret experiences differently, immediately the rape happened. I put 1 and 2 together. I knew that this one is not coincidence at all. Somebody somewhere wanted to stop me from doing what God wanted me to do. Somebody somewhere wanted me to carry this shame, and because I had become quite popular on Facebook, it was good if I did not have God as my strong foundation. I was going to hide under the shame of, oh, I'm too popular for me to share my story, or for me to come online to talk about the fact that I had just been raped. But again, a change of perspective, God helped me realize that the enemy was trying to stop me from doing the thing that I wanted to do. So when the rape happened, I told God, okay, I'm not waiting till the next year. I'm just going to start this thing that you told me to do here and now. That's why almost immediately, a lot of persons could not believe why shortly after the rape experience, I started the Demystify Abuse campaign, and I just started from there. So I was doing the Demystify Abuse campaign, and I was healing on the journey, because it wasn't really just about me anymore. I knew that what the enemy was trying to do was not me, because I had God to help me in my journey. But a lot of other persons did not have the information or the knowledge or the things I had at my disposal to help them heal and recover. So I figured that, okay, this is not just about me, so I'm just going to start doing the things God had told me to do, with the mindset that people are going to regain freedom and just deal with the shame that comes with speaking up. So I told my story and encouraged a lot of other persons to start telling their own story. And that's been the journey between 2016 and now, in a long nutshell. Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. That's that is a lot of years put into like trying to like put that in a few minutes.
Yeah, true.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I really love that you spoke about, you know, some people going through abuse and, you know, having no idea that, you know, that is what is actually happening.
True.
And like you said, we are so thankful for internet and for, you know, technology and everything now that has made you to understand, because you know, there's a saying that everybody has at least one friend or one person in their circle that has been sexually assaulted.
True.
Right? You know, a lot of people I know blame themselves a lot, and you said something like there are a lot of traits in you that you know was coming out, but you couldn't trace it back to that assault that you experienced until you know later in life. So I'm glad that you were able to like walk, you know, through that. I wanted to ask though that, you know, before I went there, you know, you also mentioned about, you know, when God gave you gave you a ministry to move into, and then the rape thing happened. And I always say something and that's something that God has, you know, been working on me since I started getting recognition on YouTube, or maybe getting an audience. And you know that there is a burden that comes with the platform. There is a responsibility that comes with the platform, no matter how little it is. The devil will always look for a way to like come and distract you from what God wants for you. And I remember when I just got married, my husband started, you know, YouTube, and how we very ridiculously will cause fights between us. You know, we'll do a video that a lot of people come and say they were blessed, you know, this helped them and all of that, and the next week me and my husband we are keeping malice and all of that, and I will be fighting my husband, not knowing that there is a deeper reason until the Holy Spirit opened my eyes, you know, to see that. So I really love that you mentioned that, and thank you so much for mentioning, you know, for talking about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I'm glad you also had, you know, I love that you spoke about having a good offline support, and that's where I want to get into, because you know, I think it was a year or so after that you started talking about this Yoruba man, right? on your I didn't forget. Because the next thing we started seeing, you know, this Yoruba man, she was teasing us about this guy that nobody knew about. Everybody was speculating, is it this person, you know. And I guess I wanted to ask though, that your husband, was he in your life at the time that, you know, this incident happened? And if he was, or even if he wasn't, wait, first of all, was he?
Yes, he was.
He
There's
was
a story
awesome.
to that. So once you're done with the question, I would give
Tell
you
us the story. I'm done with the question. Tell us.
Okay. He was actually on the phone the night the robbers broke in. We were on the phone together the night the robbers broke in. Wow. I wasn't feeling too good that day. I had, I think, ovulation cramps. So, being the sweet Yoruba man that he is, he was trying to sing me to sleep. So we're just on the phone. It was a long distance relationship. I was in Port Harcourt and he was in Lagos. So since I wasn't feeling too good, he couldn't be there with me physically, so he tried everything he could to get me to sleep. So it was while we were having that conversation that the robbers broke in.
Jesus.
And the only thing I knew I could shout when they broke my door was Jesus. And I threw away my phone. And then the robbers came in. I didn't end the call, right? I just threw away the phone. I didn't end the call. So the robbers came in and said, give me your phone, give me your phone. The phone I was using to talk to man. Fresh relationship. We were 3 months old. 3 months old when it happened. So the robbers took the phone, and he was still on the phone actually. He didn't know what was going on. Eventually, he said he thought that someone had fainted and something. So he was still on the phone. The robbers took my phone from me, took the other phone. And the particular robber who took, because I was with my roommates, there were 2 robbers who came into the house. One of them was standing by the door, right? So the particular one who took my phone from me took the phone and put it in his back pocket. And went ahead. While he was raping me, I was scared. I'm like, oh my God, let this robber not hear that somebody is still on the line, because Toby was still on the line, right? Jesus so while the guy was raping me, his entire mind was, of course, in the acts, what he was doing, and the gun that was pointed to my head. So he did not hear when Toby said hello. When Toby said hello and I did not respond, I think Toby eventually ended up ending the call.
Wow.
And that was, so the robber did not hear it. In my chest, I'm like, oh God, thank God this robber did not hear. But also Toby did not know what was going on. So he just assumed that, like I said, someone had fainted. So he was in my life quite alright. So you could say that we went through the journey together, right? So you can tell why I was so excited talking about this Yoruba man, because he showed a lot of capacity, and he showed that he had a sense of character to help me through the journey of the COVID. So he was in my life and he was there.
And okay, so well, I didn't expect that. That took me on. It shocked me. I'm shocked.
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, for him to not just know about the story, but be in your life then, and even kind of. I think may God give everybody good partners, because I know that it takes a lot for you to experience that and still be there with and still support you through that and help you walk through that season and still be your husband. That's amazing. Your husband deserves 3 busa.
Yes,
so wow. But I can only imagine how traumatic that must have been for him, knowing that he was in that place and he couldn't really do anything to help you, even though of course he wasn't really aware. But anyways, we are glad that has happened. But that brings us to the next part of this interview, which is about what are the effects, what effects does it have on you as a person, on your relationship. How did that experience affect you?
Okay. So I've come to learn that every life experience is going to affect different people differently, right?
Yeah.
But in my life, tying back to the first experience that I had to survive, there was the self-esteem issues. There was a part where I didn't like my body. There was a part where I struggled with even believing that I could amount to a lot of awesomeness in this world. It affected how I saw other people, affected how I related with the opposite gender. It affected how I saw sex, actually. I'm going to talk about that. It affected how I saw sex. It affected my general view of life, right? And then when the rape happened, that also affected how I related with my body for a while. I had this underground fear that this rape that had happened was going to affect me sexually. So because of that, it caused a lot of tension in my heart until somewhere along the line. Then there was also the part where I began to live in fear. What if this happens again? Because when I took, there's this drug, the antiretroviral drugs they gave me for the period of 28 to 30 days. Whenever I took those drugs and I go to sleep, there's usually these hallucinations that come with the drug. So I was usually scared sometimes to sleep because I did not know what was going to happen when I slept. And then no sudden noises around me, because any sudden noise, my chest is going to jump away from my body, and you're going to see it far away in another country. So no sudden movements, no careless talk around me. But then it was different having to even fully again accept my body the way my body was before the rape experience. After it happened, I have to go and wash up. I have to now start I think about what I'm like, every time whenever I think about what happened, then I'll be like so I always had that feeling, right? My body, and thank God for healing and recovery. But of course it affected me in different ways. But well, it affected me. I won't lie.
And then you also mentioned that one of your fears was that it would affect your sex life, right? I wanted to also ask how did that play out, eventually?
So when you prayed the prayer that people should have partners that have sex, I said amen, because navigating that particular journey for me, it was not going to be just me and me alone. I was going to need my partner to support me on that journey. So when that fear came up, of course we talked about it. He also had the fear. When the relationship started, I'm going to be very frank, I'm going to be very sincere with you. When the relationship started, we told ourselves that we were going to be celibate. But because of the experience, and how it happened and the fear that I had, when I eventually came to visit him, I'm like, is it that celibacy? Can we keep it behind? Let us test this thing if it actually affected me. So the first time we actually did anything that had to do with the first time we had sex was not because of emotion, was just for me to ensure that this thing did not affect the way that I saw sex. But before I got to that point where I even allowed myself to even start to get myself to the point where I had sex, there was a lot of mental work that myself and my boyfriend then had to do. He always had to affirm me. I always also had to affirm my body. I had to do body affirmations to remind myself that my dignity and my worth was not in my vagina. That I hope YouTube does not flag us for that. So
of course it's okay.
Okay, so I had to affirm myself that my body was enough, and that I was going to go through the journey together. And then my boyfriend, who's now my husband, also tried as much as possible to encourage me. So we're not going to rush it, that we're going to take our time. Whenever we were ready, that we were going to find a way around it. And then coming to having to also recognize the fact that intimacy is not only sexual. There are different forms of intimacy. Also, we had to explore the different forms of intimacy to help us before we got to the point of actually having sex, because I had come to learn that sex was more mental than it was physical, right? So if I was actually going to get to the part of the physical act, I had to work on my mind. Remember, the rape experience ultimately affected, like I said, it affected my mind and the way I saw different things, different experiences. So that also was also connected to how I was going to relate with sex. So when eventually we did that background work of affirmation, different forms of exploring different forms of intimacy, the fact that I had to do the mental work, ultimately I discovered that okay, my fears, well, we're going to navigate the journey, but it did not affect me 100%. But then it was a gradual process of unlearning and making new memories and making new sexual memories to help me wipe the previous memory of the rape that had happened. So it was a journey, it was a process, but a very important and a valid one that led to healing and total recovery.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think to wrap this up, I would like to ask, like, for anyone who has gone through that experience or is still trying to, navigate that process and becoming whole again, what would you advise? What would you say are some of the things that helped you to be able to like live that experience or even turn it into something good, that you would, you know, advise someone going through that?
Okay, so I'm going to talk from my experiences, right? And number one is actually to believe that wholeness and recovery is possible. I know that it sounds like a cliche. It sounds like, oh, it's just one of those things people say. But I've come to learn that in the journey of healing and recovery, it starts with the mind. It starts with what you believe. What you believe mentally, what you believe spiritually is what is going to inspire or propel every other thing you're going to do. So at the foundational level, when people say, oh, you have that healing is possible, don't just be one of those persons who shrug it off and say, oh, that's not true. You have to believe that healing and recovery is very possible. And the reason it is possible is not because of anything that you have done as a person. It's just because of the consistency of God's integrity. God has made healing and recovery available for everybody, and Jesus had to die and Jesus had to resurrect so we can enjoy healing, not just for our spiritual lives, but also our mental, emotional, psychological experiences. So that healing is very possible. Secondly, it's important for you to speak up as a survivor. I understand the shame that comes with it, but interestingly, the shame is not yours to bear. That was another thing that I had to learn, that the shame was not mine to bear. I didn't rape myself, right? I was that's like sometimes when people talk about, oh, there's shame that comes with it. I think we have it on its head. This survivor or the victim is not the one that's supposed to have any shame. It's whoever perpetrated the act that should have the shame, because you reduce yourself to less than humanity for you to do what you did, right? So I had to remind myself that the shame was not mine to bear, so I had to dump it. Again, in order for me to dump the shame, I'm not just going to say, oh, I feel no shame. Someone had to carry the shame, right? So again, my relationship with God played a very vital role. So I took all of the shame and gave to God. So if there's any shame that's coming out of this thing, because people were looking at me somehow in the neighborhood where I lived, people knew about the experience because I talked about it. So people knew. So whenever I was going out, people would be looking at me. I could see eyes following me. I could see people whispering. So I just had to remind myself that there's no shame here. I carry nothing. It is not my own. So I left it. And then I began to intentionally, when I walk, I carry my head. I hold it high and I move, right? And then the next thing I did also was to speak up. Speak up. Speak to someone. Find someone that is trustworthy. If you tell one person, the person does not believe you, find another person. If you tell another person they did not believe you, find another person. If you tell everybody around you and nobody believes you, find me or find Victoria, and just open up and tell someone. Yes, right? Open up and tell someone. Because your journey of healing and recovery is going to start and it's going to be complete when you have exposed the wound. Keeping the wound in your heart is not going to help you heal. At best, what you're doing is denial. At best, what you're doing is just, when you get injury and then you just try to cover it. Is it affecting your mind? Is it affecting the way you see things? Although you might not even know that this thing is affecting you, right? Every hurt, right, is going to impact you, and every hurt requires the journey of healing and recovery, no matter how little it might be, because everything that affects the way your life was built originally has changed something about you. So it's important for you to speak up so you can actually get the healing and recovery that you required. If you happen to know someone who this experience happened to after watching this video, or anytime at all, I believe that we should all just be support systems for different people. So when it happened, going to the hospital is very important, right? Go to the hospital. If you have to report to the police, also report to the police in your neighborhood. Let them know what has happened. In the hospital, submit yourself to get tested, because they will test you for HIV and then I think for STIs. Because my own, when they tested for that, we confirmed that I contracted an STI from the rapist. So I had to start getting I had to start getting medications for that. So submit to get tested so you can enjoy healing. And then just get to the point where you recognize, as you journey on in your healing, it's now important for you to recognize that you have experienced it and you're healing. Not everyone is actually able to enjoy the healing that you have received. So pass the knowledge that you have down to the next person, bearing in mind that if it worked for you, it's going to work for the next person. The reason I can confidently tell you that these are the things that I did is because I know that it actually works. So that there are some universal requirements or universal solution that will work for everyone, like speaking up, like believing that healing is possible, like going to the hospital. All of these things are universal. And then the other things that I did, there was dance therapy, music therapy. I did not get to see a counselor because I could not afford one. So all of the therapy I did was between myself, my people around me, my church, and all of that. They helped. And then find a community. Find a community of people who understand what you're going through. Don't go through the journey alone, because it's going to break you much more when you recognize that you experience this not by yourself, and then you're having to navigate your healing alone. It's going to break you. So find a community of people who understand what you are going through, right? And then they will support you every step of the way. These are some of the things that I would recommend that anyone should do given the scenario.
Thank you so much, Maureen. This was amazing. I am so thankful. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for the vulnerability. It really means so much to me. God bless you. And if you're here and you're experiencing the same thing, or you have experienced the same thing and you're looking for a way to deal, you can always, I'll leave all of Maureen's contact details, like on Instagram, everywhere that you can reach out to her, that she can be of help to you. Please make use of it. Like what she said, don't go through it alone. Don't allow shame to make you feel like you are at fault. What happened to you is not your fault, right? The shame belongs to the perpetrator of the incident, just like Maureen has said. So let me know if you guys have any questions in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about this video. Please remember to like, to share this video. Remember to follow Maureen on Instagram. She creates a lot of wholesome content on her page. I'll leave all the links below. All right, so thank you guys once again, and thank you so much, Maureen. I really do appreciate. So until we meet again, please remember to like, subscribe, share this video. Also remember that we are now releasing videos on TikTok. Okay, so go and follow victoria.fash on TikTok. Also, if you'd like to share your story, remember you can reach out to me on Instagram at victoria.a.fash. You can also send me an email. All of the information will be in the description box below. All right, so thank you guys so much. Until we meet again, I still remain Victoria, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Okay, bye.